Do you know that he called me a hipster? Hipster! I mean, do hipsters walk around wearing $300 jeans from Italy?
There was no more hated figure of the post-millennium era than the hipster.
Oh, hipsters.
Aren't you getting a little tired of this? I mean, the clothes, the antique yo-yos.
Here's how you spot a hipster, on and off screen. First off, they'll never call themselves that, and will vigorously deny being one.
He's like a hipster, right?
No, I'm not a hipster at all.
Yeah, you do seem to hate a lot of things, and the bottom of your pants are awful tight.
The hipster is defined by what they don't like, rather than what they do.
Bet you hate movies that are universally loved.
I don't even...
You like Forrest Gump?
No, it's a horrendous piece of...
They have a superiority complex based on disdaining anything mainstream and preferring obscure treasures no one else has heard of.
I really only listen to like German death reggae and Halloween sound effects records from the 1950s.
Ultimately, the hipster is defined less by an ideology than by an aesthetic, what HuffPost's Julia Plevin terms the carefully created sloppy vintage look.
Hipster or homeless? Pop quiz, ready?
The hipster believes their superpower is their ultra-discerning, highly specific taste.
It pains me we live in a world where nobody's heard of spearmint.
But they have to keep chasing new discoveries and discarding old favorites as soon as they're embraced by the masses.
Nirvana smells like Teen Spirit off of Nevermind.
Oh no, Rob, that's not obvious enough, not at all.
Yet, while all this has led to hipsterdom being dismissed as pretentious or fake, the authentic version of this character is in search of something deeper, a truly alternative existence. And this can be a noble pursuit, if they can overcome the addiction to irony and put some heart into it.
I can help people.
Vice declared the death of the hipster in 2015, but the figure's aesthetic is more ubiquitous than ever. So, did this persona actually die? Or has the hipster become what it always hated? Mainstream. Here's our take on where the hipsters came from and where they're at today.
So we're so excited to announce that we have a brand new episode of The Takeaway.
Today we're delving into the season 5 finale of The Expanse, and we're telling you all about the deeper symbolism and hidden meaning in that finale.
So after you watch this video, please click on the link in the description below and check out the latest takeaway only on the Amazon Prime Video YouTube channel.
Because when the show ends,
the conversation begins.
20/20 vision, just a bed of empty frames. Dressing like a nut, although I never got the grades.
The modern hipster label emerged in the early 2000s to describe someone who, according to Robert Lanham's 2003 The Hipster Handbook, possesses tastes, social attitudes, and opinions deemed cool by the cool.
I said I love the Smiths. You've good taste in music.
You like the Smiths?
Yeah.
And who shuns or reduces to kitsch anything held dear by the mainstream.
When you're used to listening to the raw power of Iggy and the Stooges, everything else just sounds kind of like precious.
A lot of the hipsters' cachet is tied up in the idea that they are an arbiter of taste.
Because you're just some wannabe hipster who judges everything because you're too scared to take a chance on anything.
They're experts on high culture and they love low culture, but only with an ironic detachment. Almost as soon as this type had a name, the hipster character took off in film and TV, both as an indie hero and a subject of satirical mockery.
Sorry, I was taking a selfie while shooting a Snapchat, while periscoping that Snapchat, while Instagramming latte art.
In the late aughts and early tens, actors like Michael Cera and Zach Braff played hipster heroes whose fashionably alternative tastes seemed to connote superiority of the soul.
Because you're like the coolest person I've ever met. And you don't even have to try, you know?
I try really hard, actually.
Hip to the max, 500 Days of Summer was a love story that denied being one.
This is not a love story.
Starring a hipster who characteristically refused the label.
All you people calling me a hipster can go f yourselves.
But it showed how the hipster's trademark differentness and detachment could produce valuable insights. The script used a playfully ironic third-person narration to critique its protagonist's cliched, unrealistic views of love.
This belief stemmed from early exposure to sad British pop music
and a total misreading of the movie The Graduate.
The actress who played unattainable love interest Summer, Zooey Deschanel, embodied the female hipster in almost all her roles of that era.
I teach a jogging photo group for people who want to both exercise and practice photography.
But especially as Jess in New Girl.
Ugh, come on, Bangs, you sons of bitches.
Jessica Day epitomizes the adorkable girl who revives seemingly uncool hobbies like knitting, crafting, and baking, and channels a vintage ultra-femininity, which Deschanel also commercialized via her website Hello Giggles. Alternative Hollywood A-listers likewise profited from the rise of the hipster, as former indie darlings like Johnny Depp and Robert Downey Jr. harnessed their hipster credentials into fronting major franchises.
He's got another buyer for the Jackson Pollock in the wings. Do you want it, yes or no?
Is it a good representation of a spring period?
But at the same time as the hipster was being embraced, they were being mocked.
Guy like that's hanging out here? Bar's over.
When they weren't being ridiculed, they were openly disdained, blamed for the gentrification of formerly working-class neighborhoods like Brooklyn's Williamsburg or London's Shoreditch.
They're trying to make the neighborhood spiffy for the invading hipster hordes.
Hipster culture was associated with fakeness and lazy posturing by slackers who had no talent or work ethic.
Working feels bad and I don't ever want to work one more day in my entire life.
At the center of the hipster hate is a portrait of the figure as a hypocrite. The Guardian's Alex Rayner wrote, "Detractors might not know exactly what a hipster is, but they do know what they don't like. A tiresome sort of trendy, ostentatious in their perceived rebellion, yet strangely conformist."
So, guys, what should we do? Send them to heaven or make them burn in hell? Burn in hell! Yeah, that's what I thought.
In 2009, Paste's Kate Kiefer charted various phases of the hipster's evolution in subtypes like the scenester, the twee, the mountain man, and the vintage queen, touching on the hipster's contradictory aspects like a desire for working-class authenticity and an attachment to their iPod. The common denominator in all these examples is not a fixed-gear bike or a can of PBR, but how the hipster shape-shifts to stay ahead of trends.
It might be the hair.
What might?
It changes a lot, the color. That's why you might not recognize me.
This appropriation of a range of aesthetics betrays the upper-middle-class white privilege that's central to the hipster.
Between you and me, like, my parents pay my cell phone bill and everything else that I need.
Drawing on French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu, the New York Times' Mark Greif argues that the hipster's obsession with the idea of good taste is just another way of reinforcing class structures. Writing, those superior in wealth use it to pretend they are superior in spirit.
It's important to remember that many of these cops are poor, uneducated, and bad at their jobs.
I close my eyes and try to imagine growing up in a place like this, living with the feeling that I'll never be able to leave.
The hipster term was first coined in the 1940s by jazz musician Harry Gibson as a way to describe himself and his fans.
They call him Handsome Harry the Hipster. He's the boy with all the chicks.
Beat Generation figures like writers Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, who were also avid jazz fans, epitomized the post-war hipster with their mission to live for the moment outside of conventional society. Old hipsters and new hipsters share a parallel in both thinking of themselves as part of a wider counterculture. But one thing that distinguishes the earlier hipster is that he was shaped by the aftermath of World War II.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness.
Norman Mailer defines the hipster mindset as a kind of existentialism brought about by witnessing the horrors of the Holocaust and the atomic bomb. Faced with this specter of sudden death, or of, quote, a slow death by conformity, the hipster rebels against square society. Over time, the hipster label came to broadly define young middle-class progressives who emulated working-class styles and stuck two fingers up at mainstream culture. 1969 road movie Easy Rider depicted rebellious hipster characters trying and failing to forge a sustainable path outside of capitalist American society.
It's real hard to be free when you are bought and sold in the marketplace.
In Europe, French New Wave filmmakers also tried to embody an alternative mindset by marrying existentialist philosophy, left-wing politics, and stylish young actors like Jean-Paul Belmondo and Gene Seberg.
J'ai déjà dit que le pire des défauts, c'était la lâcheté.
But while all these manifestations of hipness may heroically reject mainstream culture, there's a bleakness to the stories they tell.
You know, Billy, we blew it. And then you go for the big money, man, and then you're free. You dig? We blew it.
By the end of The Graduate, Benjamin Braddock may have taken a stand against conforming to his parents' will, but the victory is hollow, as he and Elaine will probably end up turning into their parents anyway.
Within the sound of silence.
The millennial hipster of the aughts retains his predecessor's pessimism and also channels the malaise and sarcasm of 90s Gen X slackers like Ethan Hawke's Troy Dyer in Reality Bites.
At the beep, please leave your name, number, and a brief justification for the ontological necessity of modern man's existential dilemma, and we'll get back to you.
And sensitive, sullen emo types like Daria.
People judge you by your expression.
Yes, and I believe there is something intrinsically wrong with that system. I have dedicated myself to changing it.
We can see the legacy of older hipsters' darkness and doomed search for purpose in modern hipster Dory on Search Party. The hollowness of her aimless existence leads her to seek meaning in the disappearance of a girl she only superficially knew.
I think you've decided that this matters to you because you have nothing else.
While her friends typify the status and self-obsessed notions of the millennial hipster,
I mean, she was very jealous of me.
Dory at first exemplifies something deeper, but spoiler alert, after she gets into trouble and might be held accountable for her increasingly harmful actions,
could these two seemingly charming hipsters be cold-blooded murderers?
She leans into her privilege, counting on it to help her literally get away with murder.
I don't need your permission to do anything. And I don't regret saying what I did. So you need to stop crying about it and do your job.
Throughout the hipster's history, there's a theme of resisting the capitalism that underlies mainstream society, stamping out individualism in the name of making everyone good little consumers. But one of the criticisms of the millennial hipster movement is that it's essentially capitalism in counterculture clothing, a commodification of alternative aesthetics. Far from taking down the man, the privileged modern hipster serves to uphold existing hierarchies. Norman Mailer's essay, The White Negro, argues that the original hipster's identity too was an appropriation of black culture, and especially jazz culture. 2017's Get Out makes this ongoing cultural appropriation into horror, with, spoiler alert, the story about literally transplanting white minds into black bodies as white characters who want to be hip try to steal a young black artist's perceived coolness.
Black is in fashion.
The castigations of hipster culture always come down to the criticism that they're actually hypocritical conformists. But what if a hipster is for real? Isn't it admirable to earnestly seek an alternative life and not just mindlessly do what everyone else does?
You just always seemed like, how do I put this, in search of yourself? Like looking for constant purpose.
It's more difficult to live differently, which makes it all the more worth it to try.
It's like my photography. I know there isn't that much demand for blurry photographs taken while running, but
Wasn't gonna say anything.
you know, who cares?
And it's important to have people in society who care about art and culture as much as the hipster does. High Fidelity's protagonist, Rob, may be a music snob.
It's the best collection I've ever seen.
But Rob's also an idealist with a deep love for music as an art form.
Making a playlist is a delicate art. You get to use someone else's poetry to express how you feel.
This combination of passion and exacting standards contributes to the appreciation and preservation of great cultural creations. The film director version of the hipster is arguably Wes Anderson, who's been both revered and parodied for his devotion to his signature style.
From the twisted mind of Wes Anderson, it's the midnight coterie of sinister intruders.
Because his aesthetic is so defined. From the Futura typeface to the meticulous symmetrical framing, it's easy to write off his films as only style and no substance. However, while some of his characters may appear pseudo-intellectual or pretentious,
My top schools where I want to apply to are Oxford and the Sorbonne. My safety's Harvard.
they are far deeper than that.
I think we're just gonna have to be secretly in love with each other and leave it at that, Richie.
Similarly, David O. Russell's 2004 film I Heart Huckabees might play to some as twee or contrived looking back, but at its core, it is a film about a young person caring enough to examine the deep nature of existence,
Everything is the same, even if it's different.
while taking a stand against the rising tide of consumerism.
I'm talking about not covering every square inch of populated America with houses and strip malls until you can't even remember what happens when you stand in a meadow at dusk.
We can sympathize with hipster characters who feel lost, like life isn't living up to their high standards. Jess Mariano, Rory's hipster love interest from Gilmore Girls, is an outlier in Stars Hollow.
Potlucks and Tupperware parties aren't really my thing.
Too cool for school, huh?
Yes, that is me.
But his interests aren't all that different from Rory's.
You've read this before.
About 40 times.
I thought you said you didn't read much.
Wow, what is much?
It's just that Rory has a path laid out for her to follow, and Jess doesn't.
I want to be good. Life's just not letting me.
The hipster character may hide behind their irony or judgmental taste to paper over what they don't like about their lives or themselves, but their happiness often comes in finding the courage to overcome their ironic detachment.
I guess I just figured, why make something disposable, like a building, when you can make something that lasts forever, like a greeting card?
To admit how much they do care about things, to put themselves out there and risk failing, and to pursue a life that really fulfills them.
I quit the office.
Cool or not, the hipster has journeyed from cultural outlier to mainstream agitator to just mainstream. Their aesthetic has now become fully commercialized, with seemingly every restaurant and cafe embracing reclaimed wood and exposed light bulb fittings. Hipster archetypes are a fixture of mainstream movie and TV worlds. Hipsters have grown into stable adults and parents, and the traits once associated with hipsters are now viewed as synonymous with millennial culture at large.
Everything I hate about young people. Rich, beautiful, corrupt. What do they call them? Millennials?
So who are the new hipsters? Some hipsters on screen today finally represent more diverse perspectives and deeper experiences.
Are you the girl who wrote Chronicles of a Fed Up Millennial?
Rolling with a literary starlight.
The college students in Dear White People have a recognizable hipster aesthetic, but these characters are also politically aware and striving for a better America.
Everyone said we were crying wolf, but this is our proof. A bunch of white kids dressing up like us. I mean, this is some real shit.
Meanwhile, the trend cycle continues on. Esquire crowned 2020 the year of the shipster, who would look more at home on a windswept beach than at a Williamsburg bar, while sea shanties have gone viral over TikTok.
Soon may the weatherman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum.
But rather than racing to keep up, the truly hip person today can zero in on what it's really all about, searching for an alternative way of life beyond taste that lives up to your ideals.
The world's a playground. You know that when you're a kid, but somewhere along the way everyone forgets it.
And now you have plans. You're watching the latest episode of The Takeaway on the Amazon Prime Video YouTube channel. Today we're delving into the Season 5 finale of The Expanse, and we're telling you all about the hidden symbolism and deeper meaning in that big twist.
So click on the link in the description below and check out The Takeaway, a fun, smart, and original series where we delve into the endings of our favorite Amazon Prime Video originals, answering their big questions, exploring their deeper symbolism and meaning, and uncovering the messages that we can take away with us and bring into the real world.
You can help us make more episodes of The Takeaway by liking, commenting, and subscribing to the Amazon Prime Video YouTube channel.
Tell us which Amazon Prime Video originals you want us to cover next.
The Takeaway.
When the show ends,
the conversation begins.